title, Come Home, America. Brother Dan Johnson, would you come, please? And ladies and gentlemen, would you make welcome here to First Assembly Pastor Dan Johnson, and he's going to talk to us about America coming back home.
Everything takes its measure in a nation according to the elevation that is given to heaven among the people. I read that sentence the other day, and I've thought a lot about it. Everything takes its measure in a nation according to the elevation that is given to heaven among the people. On November 18, 1863, President Abraham Lincoln rode into Gettysburg. From the railroad station, he walked 2 blocks up to the home of Mr. Davis, a local attorney, where in a small upstairs room, he prepared the remarks he would deliver the next day at the dedication of the Gettysburg National Cemetery. When a crowd gathered down below in the square, for thousands had come to the community for the occasion, he opened the window, leaned out, and addressed them briefly, and then returned to sit at a round table and write on a piece of white paper. In the morning, he went downstairs, mounted a black steed, and led the throng to the cemetery. Now, the main speaker of the day was Mr. Edward Everett, for the president was not known for his oratorical skills, and he was invited to have some remarks to the widows and others who had lost loved ones in the war. And Mr. Edwards spoke brilliantly for 2 hours. And then, following a hymn, the tall, thin man with the sad face strode to the brow of the hill and spoke. 77 years ago, our fathers brought forth on this continent a new nation, conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal. Now we are engaged in a great civil war, testing whether that nation or any nation so conceived and so dedicated can long endure. That question haunts me. It is an open question. Can this nation endure? The Allen Bradley Foundation a number of years ago made an extensive, detailed study of the history and culture of this country and came to some interesting conclusions. In the conclusion, they said, America, unique among the nations, builds its national identity not on a common ethnicity, but on a set of ideas. That's interesting, isn't it? Saudi Arabia is a Muslim nation. China is a communist nation. Italy is a Catholic nation. India is a Hindu nation. We are a Christian nation, in spite of the fact that we have been told recently several times that we are not a Christian nation. We are a Christian nation not in the sense that everybody is a born-again, bona fide Christian, but in our background, our orientation, our manuscripts, our governance, our monuments, our memorials. We are a Christian nation. That's important, because it's important to, if we don't know who we are, where we came from, and the price that was paid for our freedom, we can lose it all and won't miss it until it's gone. Nations are not held together by force of arms, but as someone has said, by subtle threads of moral and intellectual integrity. My concern is if we yank on those threads, if we tear those subtle threads of moral and intellectual integrity, we may witness the unraveling of the entire fabric of this republic. And we're in the process of doing that, my friends. I was in Minneapolis recently where the superintendent of a large suburban school called the pastors together, stood before them grim-faced and said, "Gentlemen, from where I sit, I can smell the rotting fiber of our society. As your school superintendent, I see things happening in the lives of your children that brought the Roman Empire to ruin. Unless we do something about this now, your children and your grandchildren will grow up in an America which bears no resemblance to what we grew up in." In 1861, shortly before his own death, Thomas Babington Macaulay wrote a friend in America and said, "Your republic will be fearfully plundered and laid waste in the 20th century, as the Roman Empire was in the 5th, with this difference: the Huns and Vandals will have been engendered in your own institutions." See, we're doing it to ourselves. And Toynbee reminds us nations die by suicide, not murder. We have the largest and best educational system in the world, but don't know what to teach. We have banished God from the public square, but don't know who or what to put in his place. We have abandoned the old Christian morality, but don't know how to stanch the bleeding. A mother in New Jersey, concerned about what is going on in her daughter's school, said, "If this is not the bottom, then how deep does this pit go?" So it's a good time with this beautiful music and the sights and sounds, the anticipation of fireworks and barbecue, to be reminded of who we are. We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union. We are a nation conceived in liberty, not an accident of history. We know who we are and why we're here. We built a city upon a hill, poured tea in Boston Harbor, took a midnight ride with Paul Revere, and fired the shot heard around the world. We fought at Lexington and Concord to be free, at Antietam, Bunker Hill, and Fort Sumter to save the Union. We fought at Ypres and Verdun, and piled the bodies high at Austerlitz and Waterloo. We shed our blood on the sands of Iwo Jima and in the jungles of Guadalcanal. We scaled the cliffs with grappling hooks. We are the boys of Quanahawk. We are the men who took the cliffs. We waded the rice paddies of the Mekong Delta and fought our way to Pyongyang. We, the people of the United States. We are Washington, praying in the snows of Valley Forge. Patrick Henry, if this be treason. Nathan Hale, with but one life to lose for his country. William Lloyd Garrison, writing in his anti-slavery newspaper, "I will not excuse, I will not equivocate, I will not retreat a single inch, and I will be heard." We are Robert Frost, who took the road less traveled. Neil Armstrong, that's one small step for man. Ronald Reagan, Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall. We are mothers and fathers, boys and girls, artists and craftsmen, doctors and lawyers, teachers and statesmen, preachers and farmers. We are airline pilots and bus drivers, accountants, nurses, firemen, legislators. We lie entombed in a watery grave in Pearl Harbor. We are buried in Flanders Fields, in Arlington, and at Gettysburg. We are the unknown soldier, but known to God. We lie beneath small crosses in 1,000 cemeteries scattered across the fruited plain. In America, you're too young to die. We survived the Boston Massacre, the Civil War, 2 world wars, the Great Depression, the madness of the 60s, some bad politicians, and 9/11. We're not going anywhere. But let us remember, righteousness exalts a nation, but sin is a reproach. It's a disgrace. Do you see it? Do you see it when you read your newspaper? It's a disgrace in a family It's a disgrace to a politician. It's a disgrace to a preacher. It's a disgrace to a nation. Now we are engaged in a great civil war, testing whether this nation, so conceived and so dedicated, can long endure. It's an open question. And God says, if my people who are called by my name will humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, then will I hear from heaven and will forgive their sin and will heal their land. Shall we pray? Our fathers, God, to thee, author of liberty, to thee we pray. Long may our land be bright with freedom's holy light. Protect us by thy might, great God.